The great chamber of Nexus Station buzzed with the sound of 100 different species talking at once. Floating crystals provided light from above, casting strange shadows on the curved walls. Ambassador Kang Wu sat perfectly still in his chair, watching the alien council members take their places around the massive circular table. Beside him, Dr. Park Hannah checked her datapad one more time. Her dark eyes were calm, but Wu could see the tension in her shoulders. On his other side, Captain Li Dong kept his hands folded, his weathered face showing nothing. The three humans looked small among the towering aliens that filled the chamber. Council Speaker Velther rose from his crystal throne. The crystalline being stood nearly 3 meters tall, his body made of living diamond that caught and scattered the light. When he spoke, his voice rang like chimes in the wind. "We gather today to address the human problem," Velther announced. His words echoed through the chamber, translated instantly into dozens of languages. "For too long, this species has disrupted the natural order of our galaxy." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled aliens. The slug-like Valkyrie nodded their eye stalks. The bird-like Zephrians clicked their beaks in approval. Even the usually quiet moss people rustled their leaves in what might have been satisfaction. Wu remained motionless. He had expected this day for months. The signs had been clear enough. Fewer invitations to trade meetings. Delayed responses to diplomatic messages. Whispered conversations that stopped when humans entered a room. "The humans," Velther continued, "have shown themselves to be aggressive and unpredictable. They expand too quickly. They ask too many questions. They refuse to accept their proper place in the galactic order." A Zephrian delegate spread her golden wings. "They interfere in conflicts that do not concern them," she screeched. "Always trying to mediate, always. Pushing for compromise when strength should decide the outcome." "Their technology disrupts our trade networks," added a Valkyrie merchant, his voice wet and bubbling. "They make goods too cheaply, too efficiently. It upsets the natural balance of commerce." Wu glanced at Park Hannah. She was taking notes, recording everything for the archives back on Earth. Her pen moved steadily across the paper, but he noticed her jaw was clenched tight. Velther raised one crystalline arm for silence. "The Galactic Council has deliberated for many cycles on this matter. We have reached a decision. Humanity will be given 3 choices, and you will choose one." The chamber fell completely quiet. Even the ventilation system seemed to hold their breath. Wu felt Li Dong shift slightly in his chair, the old captain's instincts responding to the threat in the air. "First choice," Velther's voice rang out clear and cold. "Complete disarmament. Humanity will surrender all military vessels, all weapons, all defensive systems. You will accept vassal status under the protection of the crystalline hegemony. Your worlds will be governed by our appointed administrators. Your people will work where we direct them to work." Park Hannah's pen stopped moving. Wu could hear her breathing, slow and controlled. "Second choice, relocation. All humans will be moved to a single world of our choosing. A garden world, comfortable but isolated. You will be provided with basic necessities. Your population will be monitored and controlled. No human will leave this world without council permission." The Zephrian delegate clicked her beak in satisfaction. "A peaceful solution," she said. "Better than they deserve." Velther continued as if she had not spoken. "Third choice, complete isolation. Humanity withdraws from all galactic territories. You forfeit all colonies beyond your home system. All trade agreements are void. All diplomatic relations are severed. No human ship will enter council space. No council ship will enter human space. You will be alone." The speaker's crystalline form seemed to grow brighter as he delivered the final words. "You have 30 standard days to choose. If you fail to choose, we will choose for you, and you will not like our choice." Silence stretched across the chamber like a held breath. The aliens watched the 3 humans, waiting for some sign of fear or desperation. Some of them looked pleased, as if they were watching a problem solve itself. Wu stood slowly. His movements were calm and deliberate. Park Hannah and Li Dong remained seated, but he could feel their attention focused on him like laser beams. "Speaker Velther," Wu said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "Council members, we have heard your ultimatum." "Not an ultimatum," interrupted a moss person, their voice like wind through leaves. "A generous offer of choices." Wu looked at the plant-like being for a moment, then returned his gaze to Velthor. "We have heard your 3 options. We understand what you are offering. Then you will take the 30 days to consider?" Velthor asked. There was something in his chiming voice that might have been anticipation. "No," Wu said simply. The word fell into the chamber like a stone into still water. Ripples of confusion spread through the assembled aliens. Several began talking at once, but Velthor's sharp chime cut through the noise. "Explain yourself, human," Wu smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "We choose none of your options, speaker. Humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately." The chamber erupted. Aliens of every species began talking. Shouting, clicking, buzzing, and rustling all at once. The translator system struggled to keep up with the chaos of sound. Velthor's crystalline form blazed with light as he called for order. When the noise finally died down, his voice carried a new edge of satisfaction. "You choose isolation, then?" "How perfectly predictable." "No," Wu said again. "We choose withdrawal. There is a difference." "Semantics," scoffed the Zephrian delegate. "You will crawl back to your little system and hide like the cowards you are." Park Hannah stood up beside Wu. Her voice was steady and professional. "All human colonies will be evacuated within 6 months. All trade agreements are hereby terminated. All diplomatic missions will be recalled. All shared technology licenses are revoked." A Valkyrie merchant suddenly looked worried. "Revoked? But our mining equipment is yours to keep," Park Hannah continued smoothly. "We're sure you'll figure out how to maintain it yourselves." Li Dong finally stood, his old bones creaking slightly. "All human military personnel will be withdrawn from joint operations. Border patrol agreements are canceled. Defense pacts are void." "Good riddance," muttered someone from the back of the chamber. Wu looked around the circular table one last time. His gaze lingered on each species, each representative who had voted to cast humanity out. "We came here seeking partnership. Instead, we found prejudice. We offered cooperation. You demanded submission. Very well. You will have what you want." He turned toward the exit, Park Hannah and Li Dong falling into step beside him. "Enjoy your galaxy, council members. Try not to break it while we're gone." The 3 humans walked out of the chamber in perfect formation, their footsteps echoing in the sudden quiet they left behind. Behind them, the aliens began to talk again, their voices carrying notes of triumph and relief. They had finally gotten rid of the troublesome humans. The galaxy was theirs once more. None of them noticed the small smile that played at the corners of Captain Li Dong's weathered face as the doors closed behind them. 6 months after the meeting at Nexus Station, Captain Li Dong stood on the bridge of the transport ship Morning Star and watched another human colony disappear into the distance. The planet below had been home to nearly 2 million people for the past 50 years. Now it was empty, its cities dark, its farms abandoned to the wind. "Last transport is clear of the atmosphere," reported his navigation officer. "Lieutenant Kim Soo," her voice was steady, but Lee could see the sadness in her eyes. This was the 14th colony they had evacuated this month. "Set course for the next system," Lee ordered. He pulled up the list on his tablet. 17 more colonies to go before his fleet was finished with this sector. Across human space, dozens of other evacuation fleets were doing the same work. Down in the cargo bays, families sat quietly among their belongings. Children asked their parents why they had to leave their homes. The adults gave simple answers, but Lee knew many of them were asking the same question. Why were they running away? Why didn't they fight back? They would understand soon enough. Admiral Kim Jin coordinated the massive operation from his flagship, the Steadfast. His command center buzzed with activity as hundreds of ships moved through space like pieces in a vast puzzle. Transport vessels carried people and their most precious belongings. Cargo haulers moved industrial equipment and manufacturing systems. Military escorts watched the borders, making sure no alien forces tried to interfere. Status report, Jin called out to his staff. Sector 7 is complete, announced Commander Park Ji. All human populations evacuated. Colonial infrastructure is being stripped as ordered. Sector 12 reports they need another week, added Captain Yoon Hae. The mining equipment on Kepler 442b is more complex than expected. Jin nodded. Tell them to take what they can and destroy the rest. We don't leave anything useful behind. The Admiral walked to the main display screen that showed the entire operation. Red dots marked abandoned colonies. Blue dots showed ships moving toward human space. Green dots indicated systems already cleared. It looked like a slow retreat, but Jin knew better. This was not a retreat. This was Phase 1. Engineer Choi Min worked around the clock in the industrial systems of New Harmony. Her job was to make sure that when humans left, they took everything important with them. Manufacturing equipment, power generators, water purification systems, computer networks, everything that made a colony function had to be carefully removed or destroyed. The matter converters are ready for transport, her assistant tech specialist Bae Sun reported. But the aliens are asking questions about why we're taking them. Choi wiped sweat from her forehead. Tell them we paid for those converters. They're human property. If they want matter conversion technology, they can build their own. What she didn't tell her assistant was that the converters wouldn't work for aliens anyway. Like most advanced human technology, they required human biosignatures and neural patterns to operate. The aliens would discover this soon enough. Merchant Captain Yoon Seal ran one of the largest civilian evacuation fleets. Her ships carried families, teachers, artists, and shopkeepers, all the people who made human colonies feel like home. She had seen children crying as they left their bedrooms for the last time. She had watched elderly people take one last look at gardens they had spent decades growing. Captain, her communications officer called out. We're getting a message from the Valkyrie trade station. They want to know if we're selling any of our cargo space, Yoon almost laughed. Even now, the slug-like aliens were thinking about profit. Tell them no. Our ships are full with our people. What the Valkyrie didn't know was that hidden among the refugee ships were vessels carrying some of humanity's most advanced technology. Weapon systems, sensor arrays, and manufacturing equipment that the aliens had never seen. These ships looked like ordinary transports from the outside, but they carried the tools that would build humanity's future. On the abandoned worlds, strange things began to happen. Alien scavengers arrived to pick through what humans had left behind. They found buildings, vehicles, and equipment that looked valuable. But when they tried to use these things, problems started immediately. A Zephrian salvage crew tried to start the power plant on New Beijing. The reactors activated normally, but after 3 hours, they began producing dangerous energy fluctuations. The aliens had to shut them down before they exploded, a Valkyrie trading company claimed an abandoned human freighter. The ship's engines worked fine, but the navigation system kept sending them to empty space. The cargo holds sealed themselves randomly. The life support system played human music at maximum volume and couldn't be turned off. The crystalline hegemony took over a human research station. The laboratories were full of advanced equipment, but none of it responded to crystalline control methods. Computers crashed when non-humans tried to access them. Robotic systems walked in circles or stood perfectly still, ignoring all commands. At first, the aliens thought this was sabotage. They believed humans had deliberately broken their technology despite their new owners. Repair teams were sent to fix the problems, but they only made things worse. Equipment that had worked for decades suddenly failed completely. Dr. Nahayo monitored the situation from a research station just inside human space. Her job was to watch and record what happened when aliens tried to use human technology without humans around to maintain it. The pattern is exactly what we predicted, she told her team during their weekly meeting. Human technology requires human presence to function properly. Without us, their systems are starting to fail. How long before they figure it out? Asked Dr. Lim Wu, her second in command. Maybe never, Na replied. They think in terms of Simple cause and effect. They don't understand that our technology is designed to work with human biosignatures, human neural patterns, human social structures. To them, a machine is just a machine. She pulled up a holographic display showing failure rates across former human territories. The numbers were climbing steadily. They wanted us gone. They're about to learn what gone really means? Captain. Song Bio commanded a small scout ship that operated just outside the borders of human space. His mission was to watch alien activity and report back to command. What he saw was both amusing and disturbing. The Zephrian Empire just lost 3 mining platforms in the Vega sector, he reported during his weekly check-in. Equipment failures. They're blaming human sabotage, but we know better. Any signs they're figuring it out? Asked his contact at Fleet Command. Not yet. They're too proud to admit they need us. The Valkyrie are starting to have problems with their trade routes. Cargo ships are breaking down faster than they can fix them. The crystalline hegemony is having power grid failures on worlds they took from us. Song looked at his sensor displays. 3 alien ships were visible in the distance, struggling with what looked like engine problems. Sir, I think we're about to see what happens when a galactic civilization realizes it can't function without the species it just kicked out. Back on Earth, President Ko Yoon met with her senior advisors in the underground command center beneath the capital. The room was filled with displays showing the progress of the evacuation and the growing problems in alien space. All our people will be home within 3 months, reported Defense Minister Ante. The aliens are starting to realize that something is wrong, but they haven't connected it to our departure yet. Economic disruption is accelerating, added Trade Minister Park Ree. Supply chains that depended on human logistics are breaking down. Markets that relied on human trade are becoming unstable. President Ko nodded slowly. She had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but the aliens had made their choice. How long before they come asking for help? Our projections suggest 18 months, replied Dr. Nahayo via secure communication link. Maybe less if the Cascade failures accelerate. Ko looked around the room at her advisors. These people had spent years preparing for this day. Phase 1 is almost complete. Are we ready for Phase 2? The hidden bases are operational, confirmed Admiral Yang Jun. Our true fleet is ready. When the time comes, we'll be prepared. Outside, the last transport ships were arriving from the furthest human colonies. The withdrawal was nearly complete. Soon, humans would be gone from galactic civilization entirely. The aliens were about to learn what they had really lost. 1 year after humanity's withdrawal, Colonel Bae-yun sat in her office on Luna Station, reading reports that would have been impossible to believe just months earlier. The former military attached to the Zephrian Empire had been recalled when humans left galactic space, but she still received intelligence from automated monitoring systems left behind in alien territory. "Ma'am, you need to see this," said Lieutenant Oh-min, hurrying into her office with a datapad. "The Zephrians just lost their entire 7th Fleet." Bae looked up from her morning briefings. "Enemy action?" "No, ma'am. Equipment failure." "Oh." 73 ships suffered simultaneous power core malfunctions during routine maneuvers. The fleet admiral is blaming sabotage, but their own engineers can't find any evidence of tampering. Bae took the datapad and scrolled through the report. The Zephrian Empire had been so proud of their military might. Their ships were fast and deadly, equipped with weapons that could crack planets. But those weapons had been improved by human engineering, stabilized by human technology, maintained by systems that required human oversight. "Any word from the other powers?" she asked. "The crystalline hegemony is dealing with massive infrastructure failures. The Valkyrie Syndicate's trade networks are collapsing. Even the smaller species are reporting problems." Bae nodded grimly. It was happening exactly as predicted. Dr. Nahayo stood before a wall of monitors in her research facility, watching the slow collapse of galactic civilization. Her team had been tracking the Cascade failures for months, documenting each breakdown, each system failure, each moment when alien confidence turned to confusion. "The pattern is accelerating," she told her assembled staff. "Equipment failures are happening 400% faster than our most aggressive projections." Trade volume has dropped by 60% in the past 6 months. Military incidents are up 300%. Her assistant, Dr. Kimbio, raised his hand. Are they starting to connect the failures to our departure? Some of them are, Nell replied, but they refuse to admit it publicly. The Zephrian Military Command issued a statement yesterday blaming cosmic radiation for their fleet problems. The crystalline hegemony claims their infrastructure issues are due to natural aging of systems. She clicked to the next slide showing a galaxy-wide map marked with red indicators. What they don't understand is that human technology wasn't just equipment they bought from us. We integrated our systems into theirs so deeply that they became dependent on our innovations without realizing it. Dr. Kim looked confused. How is that possible? Na smiled sadly. Because we were trying to help. When a Valkyrie trade ship had engine problems, we didn't just fix it, we improved it. When Zephrian weapons overheated, we developed better cooling systems. When crystalline power grids became unstable, we created stabilization protocols. They thought these improvements came from their own engineers. Captain Song Bio docked his scout ship at the hidden monitoring station in the asteroid field between human and alien space. The station looked like just another mining platform, but it housed some of humanity's most advanced surveillance equipment. From here, they could watch the slow death of galactic civilization. Report, ordered Commander Yundal, the station's commanding officer. It's getting worse out there, Song replied, settling into a chair in the briefing room. I watched Valkyrie convoy try to deliver food supplies to the outer colonies. Half their ships broke down en route. The other half arrived with spoiled cargo because their preservation systems failed. Casualties? 3 colonies are on emergency rationing. The Valkyrie are trying to organize relief efforts, but their logistics networks are falling apart. They're used to human companies handling the complex calculations for supply chains. Song pulled up a holographic display showing shipping routes throughout alien space. Look at this. Before we left, goods moved efficiently along these corridors. Human freight companies optimized the routes, human banks financed the shipments, human insurance companies managed the risks. Now, the display showed chaos. Ships wandered in inefficient patterns, carrying partial loads to wrong destinations. Entire sectors were cut off from regular supply runs. They're fighting wars over resources that should be abundant, Song continued. The hegemony and the Zephrians are shooting at each other over mining rights to systems that have plenty for everyone. They just can't organize the extraction and distribution anymore. Deep in crystalline hegemony space, Speaker Velther stood, in his private chambers, staring at reports that filled him with growing dread. His crystalline body, normally bright and clear, had developed cloudy patches, a sign of stress among his people. The humans have been gone for 12 months, he said to his aide, a younger crystal being named Shalver. Why are we still having these problems? Perhaps the human sabotage was more extensive than we thought, Shalver suggested. Our engineers believe they may have introduced hidden flaws into our systems. Velther turned away from the reports. Bring me the files on human integration projects. I want to review every piece of technology they touched, every system they worked on. Hours later, Velther sat surrounded by data crystals containing decades of records. The more he read, the more disturbed he became. Humans hadn't just sold them technology, they had quietly improved everything they touched. Power systems, communication networks, manufacturing processes, even basic tools had been enhanced by human innovation. This is impossible, he whispered to himself. Our civilization existed for thousands of years before we met humans. How did we become so dependent on them so quickly? But the evidence was clear. Every major system in hegemony space had been touched by human engineering. Not obviously, the improvements had been subtle, elegant, integrated so smoothly that they seemed like natural developments. But without human oversight, these enhanced systems were reverting to their original, less efficient states on the planet. Velkar Prime, the Syndicate's homeworld. Merchant Prince Gulthek faced the worst economic crisis in his species' history. The slug-like alien oozed nervously across his office floor, leaving a trail of stress secretions behind him. "The numbers don't make sense," he gurgled to his chief accountant. "Trade volume is down, but demand is up. Costs are rising, but quality is falling. How is this possible?" "The human factor," his accountant replied reluctantly. "Our economists have been studying the patterns. Human companies didn't just compete with us, they made the entire system more efficient. Their banks provided better exchange rates. Their insurers took risks others wouldn't. Their logistics companies optimized routes that we're now struggling to maintain." Galactic HFY stocks drooped with despair. "You're saying our entire economy was dependent on human participation?" "Not dependent, enhanced, but the enhancement was so significant that without it, we're operating at maybe 40% of previous efficiency." In the Outer Rim territories, border conflicts that had been dormant for decades suddenly flared into open warfare. The Moss people and the Stone Builders, two species that had lived in relative peace, found themselves fighting over water rights on a dozen worlds. Elder Root Whisperer of the Moss people swayed gently in the conference chamber, her leaves rustling with anxiety. "We followed the same water-sharing protocols we've used for 50 years. Why do they suddenly claim we're taking more than our share?" Her advisor, a younger Moss person named Thornsinger, provided the answer she didn't want to hear. "The protocols were administered by human mediators. They maintained the measurement systems, resolved disputes, updated the agreements when conditions changed. Without them, we're arguing over interpretations of 50-year-old documents." Root Whisper finished. "And the Stone Builders think we're cheating because our consumption has technically increased, has it?" "Yes, but only because human agricultural advisors helped us develop more efficient growing methods. We're feeding the same population with less water per person, but our total usage went up because our population grew. The Stone Builders don't understand the difference. Across the galaxy, similar scenarios played out hundreds of times. Species that had coexisted peacefully discovered that their cooperation had depended on human mediation, human expertise, human systems that nobody had noticed until they were gone. Back on Earth, President Ko Yoon received daily briefings on the deteriorating situation. Her advisors presented data showing the accelerating collapse of galactic order, but she took no pleasure in being right. "Any contact from the Council?" she asked her foreign minister. "Nothing official, but we're detecting increased communication. Traffic between Council worlds. Emergency sessions, crisis meetings, they're starting to panic. How long before they swallow their pride and ask for help?" "Our analysts estimate 6 more months. Maybe less if the military situation continues to deteriorate." Ko stood and walked to the window overlooking the sprawling city below. Earth had never looked more beautiful, never felt more like home, but she knew this peace was temporary. Soon, humanity would have to decide whether to help the galaxy that had rejected them or let it burn. "Prepare the fleet," she ordered quietly. "All of it. When they come asking for help, we want to negotiate from a position of strength." Outside, the last human refugees from the Rim colonies were settling into their new homes. They had lost their worlds, but they had gained something more valuable, the knowledge that humanity was unaided months after humanity's withdrawal. General Ante watched from his command bunker as the galaxy tore itself apart. The holographic display showed red zones spreading across star maps like a disease. What had once been peaceful trade routes were now battle zones. Stable governments were collapsing into civil war. Ancient grudges, held in check for generations, had exploded into open conflict. "Ma'am, incoming priority transmission from Deep Space Monitor 7, announced his communications officer, Sergeant Park Hyo. Put it through." Captain Songbo's image appeared on the main screen. The scout commander looked exhausted, his uniform wrinkled from weeks in deep space. "General, you need to see this. The Zephrian Empire just fractured. 3 of their core worlds have declared independence." An leaned forward in his chair. "What triggered it?" "Food riots. Their agricultural systems have been failing for months. When the central government couldn't deliver relief supplies, the outer worlds decided they were better off on their own. The general studied the tactical display. The mighty Zephrian Empire, which had controlled 30 star systems and commanded fleets that could darken suns, was breaking apart like a house of cards. What about their military? Split down the middle. Half the fleet is loyal to the homeworld. The other half is defending the breakaway colonies. They're shooting at each other with weapons that barely work anymore. Dr. Chun-Ri had predicted this exact scenario 2 years ago. The xenobiologist had spent decades studying how different species interacted, how their societies functioned, how their conflicts developed. When humanity was forced to leave, she had warned that removing their stabilizing influence would lead to chaos. Now she stood in her laboratory on Mars, surrounded by her research team, watching her predictions come true with horrifying accuracy. The Cascade effect is complete, she announced to her staff. Every major galactic power is experiencing internal collapse simultaneously. Her assistant, Dr. Kim Tae, looked at the data feeds with disbelief. How did they become so dependent on us? So quickly? It wasn't quick, Chun replied. It took 50 years of gradual integration. We became the invisible foundation that everything else was built on. When that foundation was removed, she gestured at the screens showing burning cities, refugee fleets and battles raging across space. They forgot how to function without us. On the crystal world of Hegemony Prime, Speaker Velther faced the worst crisis in his species' history. The great crystal cities that had stood for millennia were going dark one by one as power systems failed beyond repair. The crystalline beings, who had once considered themselves the most advanced species in the galaxy, were reduced to using primitive lighting and basic tools. The humans must have planted some kind of virus in our systems, insisted his chief engineer, a brilliant crystal named Corallan. There's no other explanation for such widespread failure. Velther had stopped believing in sabotage months ago. The truth was more disturbing than any virus or hidden attack. His people had simply forgotten how to maintain their own technology. Show me the maintenance logs from before the humans arrived, he ordered. Corallan's crystalline form flickered with uncertainty. The records from that period are incomplete. Incomplete how? We relied on human data management systems to organize our archives. When they left, we lost access to pre-integration records. We know our civilization existed, but we can't access the technical knowledge of how it functioned. Velther felt something crack inside his crystal heart. They had been so proud, so certain of their superiority. Now they were discovering that their advanced civilization had been dependent on the primitive humans they had cast out. In the Valkyrie commercial sectors, merchant Prince Gulfek watched his life's work crumble around him. The great trading empire his family had built over centuries was collapsing as ships broke down faster than they could be repaired and cargo rotted in warehouses without functional preservation systems. We need to send a message to Earth, he told his senior advisors, his voice thick with desperation. The Council forbade all contact with human space, reminded his chief accountant. The Council is falling apart. Gulfek erupted, his slug-like body trembling with rage. The hegemony can barely keep their lights on. The Zephrians are fighting a civil war. The Outer Rim species are reverting to primitive tribalism. There is no council anymore. He slithered to the great window that overlooked the spaceport. Once, thousands of ships had filled those docking bays, carrying goods to every corner of the galaxy. Now, maybe a dozen functional vessels remained, and half of those were too dangerous to fly. Send the message, he ordered. Tell the humans. We need to talk. Captain O'Dall commanded one of humanity's most advanced reconnaissance vessels, hidden in the shadow of a dead moon on the edge of alien space. His ship, the Silent Watch, was equipped with sensors that could detect a single heartbeat from orbit. For months, he had been documenting the collapse of galactic civilization. Sir, we're picking up massive energy signatures from the hegemony. Core worlds, reported his science officer, Lieutenant Basu. What kind of signatures? Reactor overloads? Cascading power failures? It looks like they're losing primary power on at least 6 major worlds. Oh, nodded grimly. They had all known. This day would come? The alien civilizations had become so dependent on human-enhanced technology that they couldn't maintain basic infrastructure without human oversight. Any distress calls? Hundreds of them. But they're not directed at us. They're calling for help from each other, but nobody has the resources to respond. O looked at the tactical display showing the collapse spreading like wildfire through alien space. Are we getting any direct appeals for human assistance? Not officially, but we're detecting communication attempts directed toward human space. The aliens are too proud to ask openly, but they're starting to hint. In the outer territories, ancient threats that had been contained by galactic cooperation began to stir. The Rust Pirates, a nomadic fleet of scavengers that had been held in check by joint alien patrols, emerged from hiding to prey on weakened shipping lanes. Elder Jao of the Stone Builder Confederation watched in horror as Rust pirate vessels attacked one of his people's colony ships. The massive stone beings were strong and resilient, but their weapons were designed for mining, not warfare. Where are the patrol fleets? Demanded his war leader, a younger stone builder named Granite Fist. There are no patrol fleets, Zhao replied sadly. The hegemony recalled their ships to protect their own worlds. The Zephrians are fighting themselves. The Velkari can barely maintain their commercial routes. Then we're on our own? We're all on our own now. The attack was brutal and swift. The Stone Builder's colony ship, built to last for millennia but armed with tools instead of weapons, was overwhelmed in minutes. Thousands of stone beings were killed or captured, their ships stripped of everything valuable. Similar attacks happened across the galaxy as pirates, raiders, and opportunists took advantage of the chaos. Without coordinated defense, without the human-designed early warning systems, without the diplomatic networks that had maintained peace, predators emerged from every shadow. Dr. Lin Su, chief architect of humanity's contingency plans, stood in the war room beneath Earth's capital, watching the final collapse of galactic order. The screens around her showed a galaxy in flames. What had taken millennia to build was crumbling in months. Ma'am, we're detecting massive population movements throughout alien space, reported her intelligence chief. Refugee fleets evacuation. Convoys, entire species abandoning their homeworlds. Casualties? Conservative estimates suggest over 50 billion deaths in the past 6 months. Starvation, infrastructure collapse, warfare, piracy. The numbers are climbing exponentially. Lim felt the weight of those deaths on her shoulders. She had helped design humanity's withdrawal, knowing it would cause chaos. But even her worst projections hadn't anticipated such complete collapse. Any word from the council? There is no council anymore. Velthor hasn't been seen in weeks. The hegemony government has retreated to underground bunkers. The Velkari leadership is scattered across a dozen worlds. The Zephrian Empire doesn't exist anymore. Lim walked to the main display showing the galaxy. Red zones marked areas of conflict. Black zones showed systems that had gone completely dark. Green zones, marking stable regions, were shrinking by the day. How long before complete collapse, at current rates? 6 months until total breakdown of interstellar civilization. Maybe less. President Ko Yoon entered the war room, flanked by her senior advisors. She looked older than her years, worn down by the weight of watching a galaxy die. Status report? The collapse is accelerating beyond all projections, Lim replied. We're detecting the emergence of ancient threats that were contained by galactic cooperation. Pirate fleets, machine intelligences, spaceborne predators. Without coordinated defense, they're spreading unchecked. Ko studied the displays in silence for long minutes. Finally, she spoke. Any direct appeals for help? Not officially. But we're intercepting desperate communications from individual worlds, isolated fleets, refugee convoys. They're not asking Earth for help yet, but they're running out of options. 2 years after humanity withdrew from galactic civilization, Admiral Yang Jun stood on the bridge of the flagship, determination, and watched something that should have been impossible. The long-range sensors showed massive shapes moving in the void between stars, awakening from sleep that had lasted 10,000 years. Confirmed, sir, reported his sensor officer, Commander Liso. 3 Devourer ships have activated in the Perseus Arm. They're heading toward inhabited systems. Yang felt ice in his veins. The Devourers were ancient machine intelligences that had nearly destroyed the galaxy eons ago. They had been defeated only through the combined effort of dozens of species working together. Now, with galactic civilization in collapse, nothing stood in their way. Time to nearest inhabited system? 48 hours at their current speed. Yang turned to his communications officer. Get me President KO, Priority Alpha? Minutes later, President Ko Yoon's image appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Yang could see the crisis center buzzing with activity. Mr. President, the situation has changed. We have Devourer activity. KO's face went pale. How many? 3 confirmed, possibly more awakening. Ma'am, without coordinated galactic defense, they'll sweep through inhabited space like a plague. KO was quiet for a moment, weighing the decision. That would change everything. Admiral, are hidden fleets ready? Yes, ma'am. All ships are operational and standing by. Then it's time. Begin Operation Homecoming. Yang smiled grimly. After 2 years of watching the galaxy burn, humanity was finally going home. Fleet Admiral Yang Jun commanded more than just the determination. Hidden in asteroid fields, nebulae, and the dark spaces between stars, humanity had been building a fleet that dwarfed anything the aliens had ever imagined. While the galaxy thought humans had retreated to their single system, they had actually been preparing for this moment. All fleets, this is Admiral Yang, he broadcast on secure channels. Operation Homecoming is now active. Reveal positions and begin deployment. Across human space, dozens of hidden bases suddenly came alive. Ships emerged from asteroid hollows where they had been concealed for months. Massive dreadnoughts uncloaked from behind moons. Carrier groups that had been disguised as mining operations revealed their true nature. In minutes, the most powerful fleet in galactic history was moving toward alien space. Dr. Lim Su coordinated the operation from Earth's command center. As chief architect of humanity's contingency plans, she had spent years preparing for this day. Every hidden base, every concealed ship, every advanced weapon system had been designed under her oversight. Fleet Alpha is moving toward hegemony space, she reported to President Ko. Fleet Beta is heading for the Valkyrie territories. Fleet Gamma will secure the outer rim. What about the Devourers? Fleet Delta, our most advanced ships, are moving to intercept. Admiral Yang is commanding that operation personally. Ko studied the tactical displays. Hundreds of human ships were converging on the chaotic remains of galactic civilization. After 2 years of isolation, humanity was returning in force. Are our people ready for what they'll find out there? As ready as anyone can be for the aftermath of civilizational collapse. On the dying crystal world of Hegemony Prime Speaker. Velthor huddled in his emergency bunker as the last power systems failed around him. The great crystal cities lay dark and silent. Millions of his people had already died as life support systems shut down across their worlds. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching our system, reported his aide Shalver, his crystalline form dim with exhaustion. More pirates? Velthor asked wearily. They had been under constant attack for weeks as scavengers picked apart the remains of hegemony territory. No, sir. These are different. The signature patterns are unknown, but the power readings are enormous. Velthor forced himself to look at the scanner data. What he saw made no sense. Ships larger than anything in the hegemony fleet were approaching, at impossible speeds. Their technology signatures were completely unfamiliar. Open communication channels. Demand identification. Sir, they're already broadcasting. The main screen flickered to life, showing a human face. Velthor recognized the species immediately, though this human wore a uniform he had never seen before. The rank insignia suggested high command, but the design was far more advanced than anything humans had displayed during their time in the Council. This is Admiral Yang Jun of the Earth Defense Fleet, the human said. Speaker Velthor, your civilization is under our protection. Prepare to receive humanitarian aid and defensive coordination. Velthar's crystal form brightened with confusion and desperate hope. Admiral Young, humans left galactic space 2 years ago. How do you have a fleet? How did you get here so quickly? Young's expression was calm but firm. We never left, Speaker. We consolidated. Your people are dying and ancient threats are awakening. We're here to help, but the terms have changed. In the shattered remains of Velkari space, Merchant Prince Gulthek watched from his failing command ship as human vessels appeared throughout his territory. The ships were enormous, sleek, and obviously built with technology far beyond anything he had seen during humanity's time in the Council. They've been holding back, he whispered to his aide. All those years they had this capability and never showed it. A communication request came through on emergency channels. Gulthek accepted it immediately. Prince Gulthek, this is Captain Parkman of the Earth Relief Fleet. Your shipping lanes are under attack by Rust pirates. We're moving to intercept and secure your territory. Captain, humanity withdrew from galactic affairs. Why are you here? Because people are dying and we have the power to stop it. But things will be different now. Humanity returns as protectors, not partners. Gulthek watched as human ships engaged the Rust pirate fleet that had been terrorizing his trade routes. For months, the battle was over in minutes. Weapons that had seemed invincible suddenly exploded under human fire. Pirate ships that had outrun every pursuit were caught and destroyed with casual efficiency. How? He asked in amazement. We learned. From our mistakes, Captain Park replied. We won't be underestimated again. In the Outer Rim, Elder Xiao of the Stone Builders watched in awe as human ships arrived just as his people faced their final assault from raiders. The ancient stone being had given up hope days ago, but now salvation had arrived from an impossible source. Elder Xiao, this is Commander Qin Jie of the Frontier Defense Group. We're here to secure your territory and provide aid to your people. Commander, how did you know we needed help? We've been watching. Humanity never abandoned the galaxy, Elder. We just needed time to prepare for our return. The human ships made short work of the raiders. Advanced weapons that the stone builders had never seen before cut through enemy shields like paper. In hours, threats that had seemed unstoppable were eliminated completely, but it was the aftermath that truly amazed. Xiao, human engineering teams arrived to repair damaged systems. Medical ships provided aid to wounded stone builders. Supply vessels brought food, equipment, and materials that had been impossible to obtain for months. Why are you helping us? Xiao asked during a meeting with Commander Kim. Because it's the right thing to do, but also because we've learned something important. The galaxy needs humanity, whether it wants to admit it or not. The most critical battle took place in the deep void where Admiral Yang Jun faced the awakened Devourers. The ancient machines were exactly as terrifying as the legends claimed. Each ship was kilometers long, armed with weapons that could sterilize planets, protected by shields that had resisted the combined fleets of dozens of species. All ships, this is Admiral Yang, remember these things nearly destroyed the galaxy once. They cannot be allowed to reach inhabited space. Yang's flagship led a fleet of humanity's most advanced vessels. Ships built with technology that had been hidden during their time in the Council, weapons designed specifically for this confrontation, shields powered by energy sources the aliens had never imagined. The battle was fierce but brief. Human weapons, designed with knowledge gained from studying ancient Devourer remains, tore through shields that had seemed impenetrable. Coordination systems that allowed perfect fleet movement overwhelmed the ancient machine's tactical programs when the last Devourer ship exploded in silent fire. Yang allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity had won their first victory as protectors of the galaxy. 3 months later, Ambassador Kang Wu stood once again in the great chamber of Nexus Station, but everything had changed. The confident aliens who had once dismissed humanity were gone, replaced by desperate representatives begging for continued human protection. The chamber itself bore the scars of recent battles. Repair panels covered blast damage from pirate attacks. Emergency lighting cast harsh shadows where the elegant crystal illumination had once glowed. The terms are simple, Wu announced to the assembled aliens. Humanity will provide protection, aid, and technological support to rebuild galactic civilization. In return, humans will serve as senior partners in all major decisions affecting galactic security and development. Speaker Velther, his crystal form now permanently dimmed by stress and exhaustion, spoke for the remnants of the old council. Ambassador Wu,